Neil, either maybe you didn't hear me or I didn't hear you. Can we start the stream?
We're live and good to go.
Thank you.
Right. Welcome, everyone. Today is April 26th of 2021. My name is Dr. Angela Graham-Williams, President of the Foundation for Excellence. I would like to cordially welcome you to this meeting and officially get started. It is approximately 2:04 p.m. Thank you for being here. Thank you, as always, for your time and your commitment. And as we begin and officially call the meeting to order, there's a little bit of previous business I need to take care of. I need a motion to accept and approve today's meeting agenda. There was an oversight in our past meeting, and if we could take care of that quickly, we can move through our business.
I move that.
Support.
Thank you. As it has been moved by Director Urban and supported by Carol, is there any discussion, any questions regarding this motion? Hearing none, I would like to call for the vote. All in favor of approving today's agenda, answer with aye.
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 Any opposed, answer with nay. Hearing none, the motion carries. Thank you. Thank you all for your patience and flexibility as always. And now we're going to move towards an approval of the meeting minutes from February 16th of 2021. Could I have a motion to accept and approve those meeting minutes that you should have received in your packets?
So moved, Chair. I have a question. Do we need to call the roll?
You know, that's interesting. We very rarely call the roll during our FFE meetings, but we can certainly start that if that is something that that's the committee that the board is requesting.
Just wondering, since it's Zoom style, is that something we need to do or not?
Mm-hmm. You know, what's interesting is that we very rarely call roll for the annual board meetings, but we do very often for committee meetings. So it's just a quirk that we have inadvertently developed, but we can certainly back up and do that if you'd like. Let's go ahead. Let's go ahead and take care of that little bit of business. Yeah. So we're going to table, and Attorney Robinson helped me with this,
Sure.
With the procedure, but we can table the vote and back up to the roll, or should we proceed with the vote and then call the roll later?
Let's take care of the vote and then move on to calling the roll.
Perfect. All right. So the motion has been supported by Director Mayor Anderson.
Second, this is Stephanie Hoffman.
Thank you. Seconded by Director Hoffman. Is there any discussion, corrections, issues at all with our meeting minutes from February 16th? Hearing none. All in favor of approving the meeting minutes of our FFE meeting from February 16th, 2021, answer with aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed, answer with nay. Hearing none, the motion carries. Thank you, Mayor. Very good point. I've noticed that myself, but as we've fallen into this habit, I haven't changed it. But let's go ahead and if you would, Steve, could we add that to the agenda forthwith?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so we are in your hands.
Okay, thank you, Madam President. Today we will start with staff report, and we have 5 items under the staff report.
Well, let me ask you to, if you would, could you back up and call the roll for us?
Oh, I'm sorry, I apologize.
No worries, thank you.
So calling the roll, do I begin with Madam President? Oh, sorry, Attorney Robinson, you.
I hate to correct the president, but yes, usually I call the roll.
Oh, my mistake.
At these meetings. I'm sorry. Yes, I
my
usually.
Apologies.
That's a carryover from Mayor Hopewell. So
okay, let's do it.
So let me do this. We'll start out with President Graham-Williams, and then when you say present, then you say in Kalamazoo, Michigan, or
present,
wherever you're located.
All right, present in Kalamazoo, Michigan.
All right, Vice Chair Ritzma.
Present in Kalamazoo.
Treasurer Carroll.
Present in Portage, Michigan.
Secretary Hamilton Miller.
Present in Kalamazoo.
Right. Director Anderson.
Present in Kalamazoo.
Director Hess.
Present in Kalamazoo.
Director Urban.
Present in Kalamazoo.
Director Calderon Hueso.
Present in Kalamazoo.
I think Director Dennison still is a member. And I mark him as absent. Director Hoffman.
Present and in Kalamazoo.
Director Longberg. Right. Director Alice Taylor. Director Charlene Taylor.
Present in Kalamazoo.
Director Washington.
Present in Kalamazoo.
And Director Emeritus Hopewell.
Present in Lansing, Michigan.
Madam Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you, sir. Steve, let's make sure to add that as an agenda item moving forward. It just makes sense for us to be consistent.
Absolutely.
All right, in your hands. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Madam President. So as I said, there are 5 items today, and we're going to take 2 of them out of order that are in the packet. Those are we'll welcome a guest, and then we have a presentation and requested approval of a logo for the Foundation for Excellence, update to the website and preview of that. The second session of the board ambassador work, which will welcome 2 guests again from CCS. And then we have a brief review of accessibility information that was brought to the city by Disability Network, which is a presentation for how we can improve our meetings moving forward. So I'm going to go ahead and jump to the agenda here. So you'll see on the agenda item itself that the one movement for approval that we'll have in the staff presentation is for approval of the FFE logo, which if approved would then be effective immediately. So I'll go ahead and move into the report itself. So it's got some visual materials. And like I said, I've got to go out of order here. So pardon me while I scroll. And we start here. Okay. So is that visible to all? Seeing the Kalamazoo Foundation for Excellence and FFE? Okay, super. So excuse me, I apologize. We'll pause here for a moment. The one item I did have was first to introduce Carrie Lynn Williams. She is the grant specialist with the city of Kalamazoo and joined us in May, I believe it was, of 2020 at the height of the pandemic. So just a little bit of backstory there. It was her first day of work. She joined me in an empty city hall, if you can imagine that. It was quite an interesting onboard and has been really an indispensable member of the city manager's office team since then. She came to us with, I believe, about 20 years of experience, as well as a master's of public administration from WMU. And she is the grant specialist for the city, so she's responsible for all non-entitlement grants. So everything essentially except HUD and sort of formula grants for public safety. Carrie's really a whiz with bringing those resources to the city, and then has been especially relevant to the FFE in helping us develop project assessment protocols and tools, as well as project tracking protocols and tools. And so Carrie, not to put you on the spot too much, but just wanted to have the face familiarity and welcome you and have you just give you an opportunity to say hello to the board. Carrie will be helping us out moving forward, probably a little bit more as each month and year goes by. So.
Well, thank you, Steve. That was a very generous and kind introduction. Very nice to meet all of you, hopefully someday soon face to face. And just thank you so much for everyone being so kind as we continue to grow and expand.
Welcome, Ms. Williams. Thank you for all you do. We're looking forward to working and meeting with you as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie. Excellent. So on the screen in front of you is the presentation for an FFE logo and the style guide to accompany it. So background on the logo is that we're undertaking to propose a formal logo and a style guide. It's the first time we've done this, and city staff work closely with CCS, the team that you'll meet 2 members today yet for the ambassador program exercise. So you see it on screen here in one of its variations. And the goals here were several and quite challenging, actually, when you think about what a logo in any situation, and especially ours, needs to accomplish. So first of all, we wanted it to be recognizable within the city. to stand out among, a field of many, many nonprofits and educational institutions, to be legible and distinctive, even at extremely small resolution. So when you think about this presented on a picture, on social media, on the screen of your phone, right? You need a logo that very clearly and memorably sticks in your mind in that format, as well as, potentially on a billboard or any other media format. It's got to be versatile across all those. And so if you think of various logos, they oftentimes are presented in a relatively limited sort of situation or range of presentations and sizes. And then engaging. So really wanted it to be clear and bold. It couldn't have, a lot of small detail or subtle images that could be lost if small or if printed in different resolutions. So those were the goals of the logo. It also needed to include the name of the Foundation for Excellence, Kalamazoo Foundation for Excellence, so that we could build that recognizability. And finally, the excellence, we wanted to give a little bit of a highlight to it. So with the E being called out here, but of course, excellence isn't something that's easily represented in a simple image, as you'll see often in many logos. So if you'll see the logo options here, these are style guides that can be used across some of the different ways that I mentioned logos can be used. So here you've got, the white or black monochrome over different backgrounds. You've got the white, black, and blue on the left, and then the different locations that the text can be located. And then scrolling down here, some presentations of how the logo can be used in real life. And so you'll see on the right is a letterhead and an envelope letterhead. So you can see it stands out quite a bit there. Looks very sharp on the newsletter and complements the blue of the Kalamazoo City logo. Though they'll very frequently be presented side by side or in proximity to each other. So it's good that they have that little bit of cross tie. And then again, for scale, if on the left you see it put over two photos, and on my screen at least, they're about an inch wide, and it's still quite recognizable. So if you imagine the different ways that people are consuming media now, oftentimes it's on a phone or a laptop. The FFE, once it builds its brand awareness, will be really recognizable to people in the city. So the next steps that we would be looking at today would be approval of the logo itself and the style guide that was presented as well, and then allow us to, effective immediately begin implementing the logo across our different assets, so print, website, etc. And then we'll touch in just a moment on the website update that can include this as well. So that is the presentation for the logo today, Madam President, and open for, of course, discussion and then requested action.
Any comments or thoughts?
Ms. President, I do have some questions, and from a legal perspective,
Sure.
has any thought been given to copyright and or register the logo as a trademark? I only say that because because we want to make that a mark, we should probably register it so that nobody takes it and can use this for non-FFE purposes. I think we want to be careful of that. There are people out there who, once they become aware of it, may attempt to register it before we do, so as to say, hey, if you want it, you got to pay me for it. That I can tell you that is a practical concern because it does happen. I don't want to belabor the point, but years ago, when the Battle Creek baseball team wanted to call themselves the Golden Kazoos, a gentleman up in Vermontville, Michigan, registered the name and made the team pay in order to get the rights to that name. They then jettisoned it and called themselves the Battle Cats, but be that as it may, it does happen. And then, so given us, if we go that route, I suggest we get some legal protection for it.
Excellent point and practical concern. Steve?
And I believe Attorney Robinson may have, in that moment, also volunteered as a very storied experience.
Well, I don't have the experience in it, but we can certainly contact counsel who would have that ability to get it registered and the like. There are some steps you have to take. The other one, I think Manager Ritzma the city of Battle Creek got crosswise when it didn't register the name for its recreation facility. They called it Full Tilt, and they even had a marquee and everything made up until they got a cease and desist letter from a place out in New York State saying we already got that name. And so we changed it from Full Tilt to Full Blast, but it came with some not only embarrassment, but a couple of employees got a few days off for not taking the steps to register that mark, or at least go do some homework before we spent the money to make a marquee.
And for the record, that happened before I started with Battle Creek. So.
Okay.
Duly noted.
Madam President, I have a question.
Yes. You have the floor.
I'm looking at the presentation, and I'm looking at specifically the newsletter. And so this goes to use, and this probably can be held for a different time, but it would seem odd to me that if you look at the newsletter, you have the logo on the right-hand side saying Kalamazoo Foundation for Excellence, and then you have the title Kalamazoo Foundation for Excellence. So I just hope that as we use this, we don't do things like that, that we use that logo as the title and in our newsletter from going here on. I know you're using it as an example, Steve, but I just want to make sure that that was the intent, that the logo would take the place of that whole title.
Exactly.
There, because it's just really repetitive, I think.
Agreed.
Then I had another question, but I can't remember what it was, so I'll leave it alone.
That's okay. We can come back to it, Director Hopewell. Any other comments?
Question, Steve. Did you work with someone to actually develop the logo?
Good question, Director Hess. It was a collaboration with staff. So city staff Neil Conway went through a series of iterations and then designed this logo. And really, he's the lead staff member that implements these assets. So was really in the know of what works for us. And then the CCS team was really brilliant in feeding back, use cases, like where would this be used? How would it look like? We knocked down a lot of ideas just because they would never work in the ways that we need them to work. And so they were very helpful with those expertise. Yeah.
Okay, so thanks to Neil, appreciate that. It pops, it's wonderful. And I just thought if it was a company that they would have the expertise in being able to copyright it.
Good point. And I think we can follow through on those processes pretty quickly. I'll make it certainly a priority given the urgency that Attorney Robinson associated with it.
And I would say this, that if it's approved, that we immediately start using it, because there is a common law use recognized too. So the sooner we get it, we can bring it out and start using it, we can claim it. But again, I would make the further steps of getting it registered.
Thank you. Director Carroll, yes.
Thank you. This is Director Carroll speaking. I'm trying to follow some of the recommendations that were set out in the packet. And I just wanted to mention that, sort of speaking to Mayor Hopewell's comment about, the double language. One thing that is really important is we want to always make sure that the wording is included, the Kalamazoo Foundation for Excellence, with the FFE, because as I'm speaking to friends and family about the Foundation for Excellence, the letters really don't mean anything to them. The acronym is something that I think is very government-ish. I've worked for city government and federal government, and acronyms float around very loosely, but to the public, it's the Kalamazoo Foundation for Excellence, or just the Foundation for Excellence. But I think the word Kalamazoo is extremely important to be included in that. So when you look at the style sheet, the letters FFE are always shown with Kalamazoo Foundation for Excellence. So that is how it would continue to be listed. The FFE would never be used on its own.
Yeah, I concur, as Commissioner Urban and the mayor would note, and Commissioner Miller, acronyms suck. So it's like we really need to use the full name when possible. And then we have to also, Mr. Attorney, you can correct me if I'm wrong, isn't there a foundation for excellence out there? And that's why we have the Kalamazoo tag. Is that not correct or no?
That is correct. Yeah.
Yeah, that's my understanding, that there are other iterations of that, but we're registered and we're fine. I mean, that's the way we do. That's the way we're registered with the state of Michigan as a nonprofit. It's the Kalamazoo Foundation for Excellence.
So it sounds like what I'm hearing from at least more than one director is that, and we will make a motion and take care of this formally, but I want to make sure that I articulate the motion correctly, is that we, for the most part, want to talk about having the logo, but with the verbiage Kalamazoo Foundation for Excellence included. Does that sound palatable to everyone, amenable?
It really does. I mean, really, a lot of our uniqueness is Kalamazoo, and just even saying it. So it carries a lot. And then with the other extremely nationally recognized initiatives that are taking place, namely the Kalamazoo Promise and others, it continues to carry on with that as we try to link these special things together. So I definitely agree with everyone else, not to beat that any further, but definitely Kalamazoo is what carries and grabs a lot of attention no matter where you go.
Certainly, I agree. So we're looking for a motion. Are we ready to pose the question? Steve, is there anything else you would like to ask or discuss?
Madam President, I think it's been covered well by the directors in discussing it, and I agree with that. The text presented is really the smart way to go. And then also I would add is one part of our thinking was, since this is a place-based organization in just a city, not even a county or a region, is that we'll very quickly, develop that brand awareness, which it would be, the larger the geography, the more difficult it is to kind of reach saturation. So, and what was distinctive that we found with the company that we worked with was that, FFE does have traction, and Director Carroll, take your point there very seriously, but KFE as another option. For one, there's a lot of organizations that begin with K in Kalamazoo. So we wanted to be distinct there, and then carry on the FFE, reputation and recognition that we've built over the last series of years. So I think there's a really happy medium here, which is to always include the Kalamazoo Foundation for Excellence with the logo itself. Yeah. So I think we're ready to go, Madam President. I appreciate that opportunity to comment.
Okay, thank you. My pleasure. So I'm looking for a motion to approve the new logo, provided that the verbiage Kalamazoo Foundation for Excellence is included in its use.
So moved.
So moved.
Okay, looks like was moved by Director Hess.
Sure.
Support.
Supported by Director Ritzema. Forgive me. All in favor, answer with aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed, answer with nay. Motion carries. Thank you, Steve, Neil, team, for all your hard work. We had an opportunity to see it in our executive committee meeting, and it's wonderful. Thank you for what you do.
Thank you, Madam President. And thank you on behalf of Neil Conway as well. He worked hard on that. So it's a good moment to shine. Next item is the website, and this isn't for approval. This is more FYI as a presentation of how we continue to develop our ability and the quality of the materials that we can use in the community. So you'll see here each, a website is really a modern website. You scroll through it. So these are individual pages on this presentation, but if you conceive of it really as kind of a flow of a website. And what we're considering is making sure that we, put the brand out there and we choose a photo. It probably won't be this one. This is just a placeholder, but a photo of the city. And then we really, front and center, we're able to put up our mission, some expanded history, since the FFE now does have quite a bit of just organizational history, and the board itself has history as the organization. Our priorities, and then impact. There's just a really, really rapidly growing body of projects associated with the FFE in the city that we can highlight to show the work that's being done. With that, over the years, we've been expending a very significant number of resources in the name of the FFE, and this year it's 120 million invested to date. So the ability to highlight that, impressive milestone, if you will, and then to also point to the areas where those resources are being invested. So aspirational projects, programs, the tax reduction for all city taxpayers, and then the budget stabilization that allows the city to just be a really durable and stable organization to drive all this work forward. So that can link to the investment map, which you're all familiar with by now, where it shows, goal and neighborhood level investments by FFE. And then really a highlight on some of the work that you are aware of already and that we're going to continue today, highlighting stories of yourselves, directors as ambassadors, grantees, or rather, even program partners as ambassadors, and then your program partners that implement, and then residents who are, touched in any various ways by FFE funded programs and city programs. So having these be front and center, and continue to build on that record that we've got now of using testimonials to just communicate what's happening. You'll see here under recent stories, kind of a social media ready visual way of focusing different activities funded by FFE. So in this case, you'll see Youth Mobility Fund, and then the newsletter is next to that, and then resources and some expanded direction to board of directors. So this really sets us up, and I think of this as being the spine of the communications update for the FFE that really the rest of the pieces hang off of and redirect back to. So it's exciting visually. I think it's a lot. It's a step forward from where we are now, and it allows us to then really plug in the different strategies and different assets that we're developing along the way. So again, no action requested here, but more of an update that's adjacent to the FFE logo approval. So happy if there's comment or discussion on this. Otherwise, we would then be looking to, I'll introduce our guests and we can move to the CCS ambassadorship second phase.
Steve, excuse me, Director Calderon. So I have a quick question for you. Is this live as of yet with these changes?
It is not. So this would be effective sometime in the middle or second half of May.
Thank you.
Madam President, so I'll make the same observation for the website as I did with the brochure or the newsletter. Again, we got FFE, the logo, and then we have Foundation for Excellence. I just hope we choose one and not continue to duplicate. Thanks.
Agreed.
Thank you, Director. Okay, hearing no further comments, we can move to the regular agenda item.
Okay, and so I'm going to scroll back up here and I will make this a little bit larger with this. And I believe we have on camera here already Eleanor, and let me see, Lindsay Marcinek and Eleanor, formerly Cook, with CCS fundraising. And many of you will remember Lindsay and Eleanor from our last board meeting where we began the ambassador work. And with this, I'm going to zoom in on the slides here and hand it over to Lindsay. And Lindsay, just let me know for advancing the slides. I'll scroll down through these as we go, okay?
Sounds great. Thank you so much. Thank you, Madam President. Thank you to all the directors. Thank you to the Kalamazoo Foundation for Excellence for having us back today Eleanor and I are excited to continue our conversation around our Ambassadors series. This is our second workshop, our first being earlier this year in February. CCS, as we've noted on the next slide, is an organization that partners with nonprofits for fundraising and communications. We are privileged to have worked with the Foundation for Excellence on and off since 2019. And we have other numerous partnerships within Southwest Michigan, including the Bronson Health Foundation, the United Way of Battle Creek and Kalamazoo region, and Grand Valley State University. And both Eleanor and I personally have ties to Michigan. And so it's a pleasure to be part of this work and partner with the Foundation for Excellence team. On the next slide, we provide an overview of the conversations we've had up to this point. Our first session really looked at crafting your story and telling the story of the Foundation for Excellence. And so today, building from that, we want to hear from you in terms of how that's going, and also offer some really concrete examples for ways that each of you can be ambassadors. And there are a number of different opportunities that we can go through to really help get others involved and raise the overall awareness of the Foundation for Excellence. So with that, I'll turn it over to Eleanor to walk us through our objectives on the next slide.
Thanks, Lindsay. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having us. So our time together, for those of you who recall our first session, will be interactive. So please don't be shy. We'd love to hear from all of you at some point during today's session. Our objectives for today are to revisit the story framework that we spoke about in session 1. We'll love to hear about how you've developed your FFE story since February and any successes, roadblocks, challenges in sharing that story or elevator pitch with your friends, family, colleagues, neighbors. We'll dig into what it means to be an FFE ambassador and share a number of engagement opportunities for each of you to exercise that ambassadorship as you see fit. And we'll leverage some of those stories that we discussed in our first round. So let's go on to the next slide here. Your role, again, take some notes, speak up. This will be interactive, and just be open to some new ideas as we go through the presentation. So hopefully this is familiar to most folks on the call from our session last time. This is the Pixar Story Dna. So a very successful storytelling model that tugs at our heartstrings, is super memorable, and allows us to retell the stories of Pixar movies that stick with us over time from childhood all the way through now. And what's really interesting, so a storyteller from Pixar broke down the Pixar DNA into this framework. Once upon a time, every day, until one day, and because of that, until finally. So let's move on to the next slide and we'll see how this framework can be used in an FFE context. Here we have the example of Layla's Cool Pops in the Edison neighborhood. And this is the story of one young entrepreneur who wanted to open her own popsicle stand in her neighborhood and is now thriving, giving back to the community, running a successful business, all through the help of FFE small business loan and technical assistance. So it tells this story of making a dream possible, talking about what previously the challenges were, how those challenges were solved through FFE funding. And it's a really memorable and charming story that hopefully folks can gravitate towards as you share it with them. And so move on to the next slide. When we shared this framework last time, I recall hearing some stories about advocacy, youth services, housing support. So I'd like for everyone to kind of go back to February, think about the last several weeks, take some minutes and consider these questions. What's been some feedback that you've heard from your audience as you shared your FFE story? Is there any feedback you provide to yourself after you've shared it? What's been challenging to articulate about FFE, your role as a director or specific program participant? What follow-up questions were asked as you shared your FFE story? What seemed to really interest your audience? And if you didn't test out your story or pitch, why not? What was your barrier? If you have yet to jot down some ideas along this framework, I would invite you to take the next 3 minutes to do so. And then I'll call on some willing participants to share their responses. All right, I see most people have stopped writing. So I will ask if I have a participant to share how the story went when you've shared it with a friend or colleague, and what have been some successes or roadblocks in sharing that story. And if I could call on Madam President to share your experience first, that would be great.
Oh, sure, absolutely. Do you want me to share, just for my own edification, do you want me to share my experience with you ladies, or would you like someone in the community? I have myriad experiences talking about FFE.
I think either one. Would love to hear, I guess, about someone within the Kalamazoo community, how it's gone there.
Certainly. So we probably all recall that our previous meeting was very emotional and at times feeling a little contentious. And I had someone who'd watched it and asked me about the FFE. And I still feel like, though we've had about a year's time experience with the pandemic, people still feel a lot of anxiety and speak sometimes from a bit of desperation and wondering how can I personally impact their life and how the FFE can improve their lived experience, and am I going to continue the fight against marginalized how they framed it was, am I going to continue the fight to speak up, to speak out and against resources for marginalized communities not being as accessible. And there was a lot to unpack in the conversation, and it's always at the seemingly the most inopportune times, walking out the grocery store. But this is what we signed up for, and this is why I love this, being in this position and having the opportunity and the personal agency to speak. And what was so nice is that I drew from my conversation with both Ms. Marcinak and Cook regarding my elevator pitch and having it ready. And just, I see the world through, as a therapist, I'm a psychologist, so I can't always turn that off. Y'all have heard me say that for the last several years, but really just listening and validating. But then when it was time to educate and provide some knowledge, I had it right there. You know, we had a wonderful, delightful conversation, Eleanor and Lindsay, a couple weeks ago. And, you know, very often we get involved with the busyness of leading the Foundation for Excellence or serving as board members. But do we always think about what initially drew us? And I was talking to them about just my lifelong commitment to advocacy. And so I was able to just recall just again, pieces of that conversation that was again, just delightful and more spiritual and emotional than I anticipated. I was thinking I was just going to, you know, check this off my list and talk about my elevator pitch, but I really tapped into something emotional, and I was able to share that with an individual and reassure them that not only am I, but all of us are committed. All of us on this board are committed to seeing that our mission statement comes to fruition and is realized. And I felt like the individual went away optimistic and asking me, well, how do I get on that board? So I'm thankful for that experience. You all hopefully will agree to meet with them, and you will find it just as life-giving and peaceful and surprisingly personal as I did. I don't know if that's what you were asking me.
I love it. I love it. And you're foregrounding really well some of the points that we'll get into in just a moment.
Thank you.
So if I could have one more example of a successful sharing of the FFE story, or if someone took a moment to write down a new FFE story, would love to hear that as well.
Director Carol, do you have your hand raised?
Sure, thank you. This is Director Carol, and my experience is just a little bit different because I really haven't been out and about very much, and I've been but I've been able now to get together with my parents. So we've been talking more in person. It's been wonderful, but they are a very easy audience. So I can't say that the feedback that I got back from them was, you know, incredibly useful. Except for the storytelling part, you know, because there are so many programs that the Kalamazoo Foundation for Excellence is involved in, that it's too much to tell the full story. So when I decided just to focus on the digital access for all, and that really resonated with them because they've been very concerned about the young people in the community, and how are they getting educated? How are they having access to the technology that they need? So that when I just broke it down to that one story, it really resonated with them. But then for number 3, the follow-up questions were asked, you know, well, you know, how many more still need access? You know, that was the next question, was, you know, how can we reach everybody? But it was nice because it wasn't how can the Foundation for Excellence, it was how can we reach everybody?
That's fantastic. All right, so I think we can advance to the next slide here. Great.
So as we think about what we really mean when we define an ambassador for the Foundation for Excellence, it is, of course, all of you on our call today, and it can be all of you who are watching this recording live or otherwise, because the ambassadors are individuals who are champions. And the good part about being an ambassador is that it's very flexible, and to be able to be part of this process and part of this community in a number of different ways. But unifying ambassadors are an overall passion for the community, a passion for the Foundation for Excellence mission, and the opportunity to engage with others throughout the community. And just through that process of communicating and engaging, you can be an advocate. And so inside of this opportunity to be part of telling stories and advocating for the work of the Foundation for Excellence, we really look at the opportunities and the why we do this, which is what we call the cycle of impact, which is the graphic on the screen. And this is a very, very simplified way of describing all of the immensely wide-ranging work of the Foundation for Excellence, so that residents identify the needs of and support the Foundation for Excellence projects. Foundation for Excellence then funds city partnerships and different projects. Those projects then advance Imagine Kalamazoo 2025, and Kalamazoo is able to thrive equitably and sustainably. What's really, really neat about this cycle of impact and the uniqueness of the Foundation for Excellence work is that there are stories inside of any one of those quadrants. For example, stories can be about the Foundation for Excellence itself. It can be about an organization that receives funds from the Foundation for Excellence. It can be a neighbor who has been impacted by those grants. So there's a number of different levels and stories to share. And if you're ever looking for a story, you can always borrow someone's. That's the beautiful part about storytelling and the many, many projects that are underway. You can always contact Steve or the team to learn a little more about any one project, or bring to life something that's already highlighted on the website or in social media or in the newsletter. And so being able to talk about this through both a simple lens as well as one that tells stories can be really impactful and really help to be that champion and that ambassador. And again, because ambassadors have a multitude of different roles and you can lean in a number of different ways, we have on the next slide a real inventory to get you thinking about the different ways that you might participate as an ambassador.
And I'd just like to call out that both Dr. Graham-Williams and Director Carroll's stories ended with, well, what can I do to help? How can I participate? How can I be part of all of this great work? And that's what's really exciting about thinking about yourselves as ambassadors for FFE, is there's always opportunities both for you to participate actively, but then to invite other people in. So we have, as Lindsay said, a whole slew of potential engagement opportunities. And I'm sure as you're all taking a look at what we've listed here, you're saying, oh, I already do that. I've already participated in this. I'm already actively volunteering. And that's wonderful. There are probably one or two things on this list that you could consider adding into your current ambassador repertoire over the course of time. So we like to say, you don't have to do everything right now. Everyone has a role to play. And so we'd encourage you to start thinking about what new engagement opportunities you could add to your own FFE roster of ways to support. So just a couple of cool key pieces here. The testimonial conversations are something that we are kicking off. We've previewed it with a number of directors on the board. We're ready to invite the rest of the board into these 30 or 40-minute conversations with Lindsay or I to dig in further about key messages and how they might resonate within the community. And just a couple of really interesting examples from some of the participants so far. We're hearing about the mission. We're hearing about the unique model that FFE is for the rest of the country. We're hearing about how FFE uniquely makes the vision for the city possible and how it invites in all of these unique voices to create a really strong plan. So we'll be inviting everyone to participate in these calls over the next couple of weeks, but just to see some of the interesting takeaways from these conversations. And one of the areas for implementing the testimonial conversations is a new social media series called KZU Excellence. And our hope is that this series on the city's social media channels can highlight and spotlight a local leader in partnership with FFE. So we have a couple of mock-ups. These are not live. These are proposed mock-ups of posts highlighting two directors on the call. We have Dr. Graham-Williams and we have Director Washington, who each shared some really wonderful quotes about FFE and Kalamazoo that we'd love to share now with the community. And Dr. Graham Williams has generously agreed to be our inaugural postee next week. So everyone keep an eye out for this post. Great. And just to note that social media outreach for FFE does not end with the KZU Excellence series, that we will have other posts surrounding the cycle of impact, specific projects, or FFE's work to date through the impact map. And we have a few other ideas in the works. So I'll pause there. I'd love to hear if there are other engagement opportunities, ambassador opportunities you maybe didn't see listed, or things that you're doing currently that you'd like to share with the rest of the board. Do I hear someone? No. Well, I will pass it back to Lindsay then to wrap us up.
So as we look ahead, there are several things that each one of you can do in the coming days, weeks, and months. Of course, continue to share your story and the story of the Foundation for Excellence, whether that's repeating the same story in different audiences to really hone it, or finding and trying out new stories to tell. Secondly, if you haven't already, we invite you to participate in what we're calling the Testimonial Conversations that Dr. Graham Williams alluded to earlier and that Eleanor mentioned. We really would love to hear your story and your involvement so that we can highlight that and really showcase the wide-ranging opportunities for getting involved. We also ask for you to consider your own ambassador role, in what ways you might want to be engaged. That might be continuing what you're already doing, or maybe trying something new. And then lastly, stay in touch. Share back what successes you had in terms of language and stories you were sharing, what roadblocks you may have hit that can help all of us sharpen our messages and explanation of the Foundation for Excellence impact. And then what other questions you're hearing. So often in engaging in these dialogues, you may hear a question you don't know the answer to. So it's a great opportunity to explore and advance our own education in all of the ways that the Foundation for Excellence works. So with that said, we are really grateful for your time today and the opportunity to share these updates. And we're really excited to continue the conversations with each of you and rolling out some of these new opportunities on a variety of platforms ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. Awesome work, you two. It was my pleasure to sit with you and be with you and hear your vision for the Kalamazoo FFE and the work that you're doing and the profound impact I know that's going to come from all of this. So I again want to just underscore their comments and encourage you all, if you haven't, to make that appointment. You won't regret it, and it'll be something different than you expected. And Steve, forgive me, I misspoke. I was moving towards trying to be efficient and moved too far down the agenda item. It's still in your hands with the reports and communications.
Thank you, Madam President. Absolutely. We have one more item, and that's the accessibility presentation. So pardon my scrolling here to this one pager from Disability Network, and do a brief overview here, and then we'll move on to Finance Committee report and regular agenda. So the background on this is that Disability Network presented at City Commission over a month ago now with details on how to make Zoom meetings in particular, although a lot of these would still be relevant for in-person meetings, more accessible to all members of our community. And so this is the one pager that they've provided, and the City Commission has asked that boards and commissions of its own, which are, I believe, well over 20, and then boards such as FFE that work very intimately with the city, consider taking on board recommendations. And really, when we look down this list, they're all really outstanding, and I think recommendations that the board could take on, beginning with its next committee meetings, and then ultimately with a little bit of a reminder for all board members at the next meeting. And the theme here is really making sure that we have several things in place. So one, we're asking if there are accommodation needs beforehand. We've always done that as long as FFE's been around because it's part of the public notice on the city website, so that's good. Sharing all materials in advance. Again, we publish our entire packet, so everything that's been on screen today has been live online for, doing the math quick in my head, I think it's been 5 business days. And we always aim to make that our target in advance so that people have time to review. It's often our packets can stretch over 100 pages. And that's good for people who need to read in advance or ask in advance if there's ways that they can access that information in a more accessible way. For the Zoom shortcuts, so for us it's streaming and we're always in the same spots. That's easy. We're always on the city's Facebook page and the city's YouTube channel. Our meetings tend not to be too long or at this point, so 2 hours is about the maximum. And we could consider building in bio breaks in the middle if people needed to get up and stretch or anything of that nature. So we could consider that as well. One thing that we're all gonna just have to remind each other on, because it's the one that everybody struggles with, is identifying ourselves before we speak. So in this case, I'd say, hi, this is Steve Brown. We wouldn't include a title, but just the name so that anyone who's listening and not able to see the participants for whatever reason is able to sort of track that by name. Give participants the option to make comments in the chat box. We are unfortunately not able to do that literally because we don't have a chat box on our stream, but on Facebook, people can chat or rather comment. And also we have the public comment period, which is important since we are Open Meetings Act compliant. So people are able to call in. So describing all graphics or visuals, that's something that we can take on board. We're not a really graphically intense organization for charts and figures and things. But we will give some thought over the summer for example, when we present the draft budget, right? Or we present the newsletter, how we could strike a balance between describing what's on screen and also keeping the meeting moving along. So one person talking at a time, we don't seem to have any challenge there. Having our video on when we're talking, we don't have a rule for that, but directors have been really good about that. I don't think we need to make a rule for it, but certainly we could, just try to hold ourselves accountable towards being on camera. And that's primarily so if people need to read lips, they can read lips watching somebody speak. And then muting your microphone when you're not talking. Fortunately, the connections are super stable at this point, so I don't really hear much background noise, but it is not a bad idea if you're not actively participating to put your microphone on mute. Staying close to the camera so that you're just relatively visible on screen, not putting your hands or any other items, food or drink in front of your face when you're speaking. Contact information is available, and myself as the gateway to the board for sharing comments. And then again, if you don't know, ask. If you're concerned that something you're doing or we're doing is creating an accessibility issue, to just voice that concern and have as a team everybody here to help address that together. So great recommendations from Disability Network, and we appreciate the presentation and then their ongoing willingness to continue helping our boards and commissions improve as we move forward. So that's the presentation, Madam President. Happy to try to answer any questions I have or to take notes if there are other ideas that directors may have in the spirit of this presentation.
Certainly. Thank you, Steve. There's a question from Director Kira. You're still muted. There you go.
Sorry about that. Thank you. This is Director Carroll speaking. And I am really happy to see this from the Disability Network. I am, as many of you know, I am hearing impaired. And so I just want to underscore the importance of being able to see lips is extremely important. So when you're talking on screen, also try to speak slowly and clearly. Lindsay was just an excellent example of speaking slowly and clearly, and I could hear everything she said. But the one thing that I noticed is that pay attention to your name bar, because that if your lips are within that that bar, we won't be able to see what you're saying. And the lip reading is extremely important for those of us with hearing impairments.
This is Dr. Grant Williams. Thank you, Director Carroll. That is excellent advice and a wonderful recommendation. I struggle with identifying myself, but I hadn't thought about the name bar. So thank you, and keep it coming, and help us to make sure we are being as accommodating as possible, and holding us. I think I can speak for us all to say we encourage you to hold us accountable so that we can ensure that anyone and everyone in our community has as much access to this valuable information that we disseminate. So thank you for that. I don't see any other questions. Steve?
Okay, I don't either, Madam President. And with that, we can move to the Finance Committee report, if that's all right with you.
Absolutely.
Excellent. So I'll scroll down here. And so the Finance Committee report is presented here with a background. So the action we'll be requesting is an approval of the Finance Committee report as just an entire report package. And this was brought, of course, with background, this was brought from a recommendation from the Finance Committee following that procedure. And so it's a special time of year, the annual meeting. What we have is a complete independent audit. We have a complete annual report, and we have those materials put together in the packet here for review. So what I will do is, if we've got the agenda visible here, I'll scroll down to the first item that's required in the bylaws, and this is a letter from the city manager to the members of the board, yourselves as directors. And the purpose of this is to describe the funds received from the foundation. Now, again, this is year 4 when we're building, as it were, the muscle memory of the organization and really proving its organizational consistency. The dollars have yet to come from the FFE endowment, which is being built, and have instead come through the direct grants to the city. So this reflects that and just states that plainly, as it has in past years, but does at the bottom highlight the funds that were expended by the city. So the counterpoint to this memo is one from the treasurer, Director Carroll, to the city manager and mayor, discussing the type of funds to the city. So again, this is, as it were, doing that muscle memory piece of showing that this work is being done, the bylaws are being abided, but that the funds themselves were not directly from the endowment. Moving down, we have the representation letter. And this has 23 points. I won't read them all, or really any of them, but they're listed here, of course, in the packet. And these cover transparency. They cover cooperation of the city and staff with the audit process, knowledge of fraud risk, accounting procedures, conflicts of interest, and more. And so you'll see under the financial statements here, these are all of the attestaments that staff make to the auditing firm of its involvement in this process. And that in this case is signed by myself. And then we move into the audit itself. And this is, the firm again is Manor Costerison. They were originally selected as the auditor of the city, the very large and reputable company, and they themselves prove that they are assessed by yet a third party for their integrity as an organization. I will stop here to note that in the board's approved financial policy, that it asks that we review the auditor every 5 years to make sure that we're just not consistently staying with the same company, which itself can be considered a fraud risk in that industry. And so we're in the 3rd year of using this company, and then in 2 years we would reassess our relationship or choice of bid, as it were, for using the company. Very positive audit this year, as in past years. And I'm going to scroll to the statement here. And I'll pause here. And with this, I believe CFO Vicenzi is on the line. And he's going to, in a later piece, present the endowment investment report. But I did want to offer the opportunity, if he had any comments at this point on the statement of financial position. And you'll see here, it should be legible, hopefully. Let me know if it should be zoomed in at all. But you'll see here the current standing of the FFE endowment, which is approximately $96 million. And then as I scroll through, we'll see other financial information. So CFO Vicenzi, are you on the line just to confirm that?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay, thanks so much. And so really that one major activity represented again represented for the first time in the audit this year for fiscal year 2020. And functional expenses. So this represents so 2020, what you see represented here is the last year that the expenses for the foundation itself were handled through the grant given to the city, as it were. So moving forward, beginning in the year we're currently in, 2021, the expenses for financial management, for insurance, things of that nature are paid directly out of the accounts with the endowment. So this year's audit, so about this time next year, you'll be seeing actual expenses here for the first time, just to give background on that.
Hey, Steve.
Yes, sir.
Just to step in, any investment related expenses are included above and they're not included on their schedule. And that's why the investments are shown net of those expenses.
Thank you for the correction.
Yep.
Okay. And the scrolling down to the very end. Which will take us into the 990. So, Madam President, happy to answer any questions, myself and CFO Vicenzi, if there are any, or to revisit pages that we've seen. Otherwise, I can move on with the annual reporting process.
Thank you. Steve, did you tell me that you needed action? We need to approve this report, is that right?
The report in total, so there's still, you're correct, yeah, there's still two more pieces. The
Okay.
annual report itself and the FFEIS, yeah.
Okay, my mistake. Okay. Any questions? Looks like we're good to continue.
Okay. And the 990, this is here for public record. This is the draft prior to submission. There's really not, I'm not going to review this, but it's here for the public record. So you'll see the background, there's the organizational information and standing for what was submitted with the audit. So let me scroll through here. Appreciate your patience. And we come to the visual version of the annual report that we produce. Per the bylaws, this is also submitted to City Commission in an email. They're supposed to receive it as part of our due diligence, and that was sent. So, and then once this meeting is complete, this will be posted on the internet in our document library for anyone to access. So we have here a picture of a house that FFE funds with the city helped to construct. This is right on the border of the Vine and Edison neighborhoods. And you'll see here the annual statement from President Graham Williams, which really holds, is truer now than it did with the newsletter in December. And then just a little tease here on what's been invested so far. And again, this is available for everyone to read, so I won't go through it too much, but strategically, our goal here was to continue to highlight the absolute fundamental reason that the FFE exists and what it does. We're still in just this phase of getting that information out about budget stabilization, aspirational projects, and tax reduction, and then directing people to the website and the online investment map. Here is, as with last year, the statement of financial position and statement of activities. So this is directly, a screenshotted, if you will, from the audit itself, showing those parts of the financial accountability. On the left, we have an area chart for alignment with the Imagine Kalamazoo goals, and rather project names in some cases, showing where we're investing the lion's share of the resources. And then the final page here is really a lot about the board, about yourselves, about how everybody is eligible to apply, and how we go through the vetting process, the importance of a stakeholder-oriented board, and then the list of board of directors yourselves there as well. So that's the annual report this year, and will be posted after today's meeting on the website. And again, I'll scroll down to the endowment statement unless there's any questions from directors here. And please, I can't see everybody's face on screen, so I apologize if I missed raise hand. So if you could just speak up. Okay.
I don't see any questions, Steve.
Thank you very much. So CFO Vicenzi, I will drive this if you can call the shots on where you'd like me to scroll for the statement of the endowment, which is dated December 31st. And background here, I want to be clear, this was a staff oversight on my part actually to present this with the Finance Committee. And I communicated that to the Finance Committee between our last meeting and now, and there was no other action requested. So just wanted to highlight that. So CFO Vicenzi, I will come down here to—
If you pause that, go up to that first page.
Right there, excellent.
Yep. This page just highlights the activity for the quarter. You can see where my apologies. We had an increase of 6.2 million, or just under 7% for the quarter as a whole. Not a lot to necessarily report here this year. This quarter, our investments remain stable in a mix between equities and bond type investments. I do want to note that, if you look at the last sentence there, since May 1st, the investment committee was able to return 18.25% total for the year. So figure that was only over about 7 months. So they have more than lived up to what they have been able to do historically. And Steve, I guess if you want to scroll through, I think we kind of went through this. You just keep going. Here, I guess you can kind of see where you can see where our asset classes are. Our actual at the end of the quarter is 52% equity to 48% fixed income. The policy of the investment committee is to stay within 3% of those targets. So unless we're more than 3% out of our 50-50 allocation right now, we don't adjust that in the interim. And I guess, as we scroll through, I think we covered this in detail last time, but largely the same report with the same information. You can kind of see the returns by month at the moment. The longer we get into this, that we may change this more to a quarterly and annual basis. But you can see here just how well we were able to do over the course of last year. So I'm just kind of, if you guys can't keep scrolling, I don't know if there's anything, it's largely kind of the same information in different formats with a little bit different turn to it, or as far as analysis, but just kind of largely the same report over and over again here. So you can just kind of keep scrolling through.
Yeah, so CFO Vicente, this is Steve Brown. I appreciate first of all, the consistency and the stability of it is something to appreciate and celebrate. And I wonder moving forward if the board would appreciate a more condensed version of this. And I guess, Madam President, that's maybe a question to consider at Finance Committee, is if this level of detail at each board meeting is a right size fit for the board. It's certainly it's presented as on the public record through the investment subcommittee, and then again through the Finance Committee. So certainly accessible there. But it may be that we come up with a little bit more efficient presentation of this that maybe fits the format of the board meetings a little bit better. So just putting that out there as an option that maybe Finance Committee could take up if that were so desired. But in scrolling through here, yeah, I think we end on the equity and bond statement mix. So
and that's just a description of the different funds that we're invested in at the moment.
Steve, I think that you make a very good point, and I'm interested in hearing feedback from the rest of the board. Some of us are extremely financial minded, if you will, and those others may appreciate a more high level, broad stroked summary of movement and findings. And so let's just have, if you could indulge us, Steve, and CFO Vicenzi, apologize, to have a brief conversation about that now. Any thoughts?
I know that there was, and this is just a little food for thought. In the beginning, there was lots of conversation surrounding transparency and those types of things. So I love a simple document as much as many of the others. But I think that if we just leave it in this format and we get a chance to look at it, extract questions and stuff out, then we have no shade anywhere on that. So when it comes to the financials, I think we should all have to grin and bear it and go through it, and then, you know, trust Director Carroll and the others to really help us, and those in the finance committee to really help us understand if we've got some gaps and stuff.
I support what Director Washington has said. I'd rather err on the side of being too voluminous. As long as we have some good graphics to go with the tables, I think more detail is better than too little. So definitely.
Director Carroll, were you going to say something?
Yes, this is Director Carroll. I was just going to agree. I think, you know, it may seem like an awful lot this time because we're also, it's included with the audit and the 990, and, you know, there's a lot here, but I think it's very good to have it. And then just, it's a lot of information, but I in the spirit of transparency, I think it is important to go over it.
Thank you. We've heard from Directors Washington, Urban, and Carroll. I'm Director Graham-Williams. It seems like the body has spoken.
Excellent.
And President Graham-Williams, I'd like to go on record also to say that doesn't include everything. Now, some stuff can be made very simple. So this answer does not cover all, just this particular thing. Thank you, Steve, for the recommendation.
I hear you, Director Washington. Thank you.
Madam President, I'm going to get back to the top level agenda item here. So with that, we conclude the presentation of the Finance Committee report, and that would then be in total ready for any action as you see fit to approve.
Okay. Any other questions before we pose the motion?
Just a quick, yes. This is David Anderson. Quick question here. Chair Graham-Williams. I know often with finance reports, they are accepted, not approved. I don't know what the exact difference is there. I don't know if that comes into play on this action or not.
I'm seeing some heads nodding. Okay. Thank you for clarifying for me.
I'll make a note for the future. I believe that is, I can do accepted in the future. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. Before I bring forth a motion, I would be remiss if I did not congratulate Director Carroll for stepping into this position with very little notice, with the typical grace and commitment that I have come to know her to personify, and just thank her for taking on this challenge. And also to thank Director Washington, who so graciously nominated her, who is such a wonderful discerner of talent, because he also nominated me for my first leadership role in the FFE. So I just want to thank you both, just for Director Washington being so prudent and Director Carroll for being so willing. Thank you both for all you do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor Anderson, do you have your hand up? Oh, okay.
No, he just can't believe what you're saying. That's all. He can't even believe what you just said, but that's okay.
All right, thank you all. So we are looking for a motion to help me now, approve or accept now?
Accept.
Accept, thank you.
So moved.
Thank you. Moved by Director Washington.
I saw
second that.
Director Taylor, Charlene Taylor seconded that.
Thank you. Any further discussion? As the motion has been properly moved and seconded, I am looking for your answer of yes. If you accept the motion, answer with aye.
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 Any opposed? Answering with nay. Hearing none, the report is accepted. Thank you again for this continuous improvement, Mayor Anderson and former Mayor Hopewell.
Okay. Madam President, that takes us to regular agenda, so I can proceed with item D1, which is annual director appointments.
This is Dr. Graham Williams. Please do.
Thank you. This is Steve Brown. This is going to take some practice. I apologize. This is Steve Brown, and we're on item D1, so regular agenda, annual director appointments. And this is one of the core parts of why we have our annual meeting, which is for directors, committees, and officer positions, and then committees. And so the background on this, as with previous years, is that the staff worked with our governance facilitator, which is the Kalamazoo Community Foundation, to convene the stakeholder groups to look at if those groups wanted to re-recommend those of yourselves in those three groups. So Dr. Graham Williams, Director Miller, and Director Washington. And we received unanimous response in those cases. And so we moved ahead with re-recommending the three of you directors to the City Commission, and that received unanimous approval as well. And so now we are to the board level here. And so reappointment of yourself, Director Graham Williams, as healthcare stakeholder ending in 2024. Reappointment of Director Miller as neighborhood stakeholder, in this case of the Winchell neighborhood, ending in 2024. And reappointment of Director Washington as education stakeholder ending in 2024, all for 3-year terms. And then this would be up for recommended action, which is approval and reapproval. It's approval of reappointment of all 3 directors. And so there's background here in the memorandum from the Community Foundation. So this covers the process that they undertook. Again, it's the same as in previous years, with a focus on diversity of the abilities of the appointee or reappointee to conduct the duties of the board, diversity across sectors in those stakeholder groups, and then diversity of perspectives brought to the FFE. So you can read the entire methodology document here if you'd like. It's part of the public record in this packet. Same as last year. And so with that, the presentation of reappointments is concluded, President Graham Williams, and a motion is requested.
Attorney Robinson, since this affects me directly, would it be appropriate to ask Vice President Rittima to conduct the vote, or shall I proceed?
You may proceed. I mean, if you feel uncomfortable, you can certainly pass it off to the vice chair, but there is no conflict in asking for you to vote for yourself or to preside over the election.
Okay, thank you, sir.
I heartily support the motion. This is David Anderson.
Thank you, Mayor Anderson. I guess I'm proceeding. The motion to reappoint the 3 of us directors, Carol Washington and Graham Williams, for reappointment to the FFE. Thank you. It was moved by Director Mayor Anderson.
Second.
Seconded by Director Hess. Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor, answer with aye.
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 Any opposed, answer with nay. Hearing none, The motion carries. Thank you all. It is my great pleasure to continue with you all in this journey.
Well, since it's not director comments, I'm going to take a liberty, and as staff say, the place wouldn't be the same without you three. So I'm very delighted to see the reappointments.
Thank you all, truly.
Item D2 is, excuse me, D2 is officers. And Madam President, there will be a recommended action on this, which is to review the proposed slate from the executive committee and yourself, and then to elect a final slate. And background to the board here is that at the executive committee's last meeting on April 12th, the committee discussed once again previous procedures and that precedent for nominating a slate to kind of offer that first option of those who could be officers. But each was very keen and felt a sense of responsibility in saying that they would happily step aside in their officer position, so president, vice president, treasurer, or secretary, if any other directors were interested in taking those roles. And there was a sensitivity in being clear that they very much enjoyed the roles and the responsibility, but also want to be sure that they're creating space for others. I thought it was a really positive conversation. And so with that, the slate that's recommended or proposed is status quo. So President Graham-Williams, Vice President Ritzema, Treasurer Carroll, Secretary Miller. But each of them was very clear as well that they would happily, share those positions if somebody else was interested in stepping aside, with no hard feelings and no sense that somebody was displeased with their performance, as it were, and wanted to take that role. So, and then just to be clear, is that the terms are for 1 year and they're elected annually. So, it's a year is the length of all these terms. And so with that, I can conclude the presentation of the officer slate, unless President Williams, you had anything to add.
No, I just wanted to thank you. I couldn't put it better myself. There's no need for me to recount what you just said, because we, serve at the pleasure of this board. We certainly, though, are willing to support anybody else who is willing or able or wanting to, whatever, desires to step into leadership. And no, absolutely no hard feelings. We just, encourage the collective work of this board, and just want to make sure that is really, really recognized and heard and known.
Barb Miller here.
Yes, go ahead, Director Miller. We can hear you.
Hi. Yes, I just wanted to ask again, Director Dannison is resigning, and I think he was on the executive committee. Did we ever come up with a plan for that position?
That's item D3 is the next item where we go over committee appointments.
I'm sorry. Okay,
Yep.
Good.
No worries. Excellent question. Yeah, you're right. But so I'll hold back until we get there.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay, not hearing anything. Shall we proceed with the motion to accept the current slated officers to continue in their positions for the from today until next year?
I so move.
Thank you, Director Urban.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Director Calderon. As it's been properly moved and seconded, is there any discussion at all? Hearing none. All in favor of the current slate of, yes. Director Taylor. Come off mute. You still on mute. We still can't hear you, unfortunately. There you go.
Okay, because I've been making moves and nobody's been responding. So.
Oh, I apologize. I haven't seen. So,
okay, I got it now.
All right. Any further discussion? All in favor of the current list of officers, please respond with aye.
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 Any opposed, answer with nay. Hearing none, the motion carries. Again, thank you all. It is my distinct honor and privilege to serve in this capacity.
Our final regular agenda item today, Madam President, is item D3, and this is for committee nominations. And we have a sheet here, and I'll just jump off of this screen share to bring up this in a Word doc so we can work on it together on the screen here. But the background is that every year again for the annual meeting, once the directors are in place and the officers are in place, we can go through, so I'll end the screen here, share here. We can go through those officers and figure out who needs to go on the committees. This was circulated in advance to board members by email as a way of just being ready to prepare. And let me see here. You know what, I'm actually going to stick with this because it doesn't look like Word is going to cooperate. So as you'll see here, if everybody can see this, we'll start with the Finance Committee first because there's a member of the Executive Committee that needs to be a Finance Committee member. So President Graham-Williams, we see yourself as ex officio. Treasurer Carroll, we see yourself there in the number 2 slot. CFO Vicenzi, and then Vice President Ritzema. So the 5th and 6th members of the Finance Committee can be any of the listed stakeholders here. So Directors Calderon Hueso, Carroll, in this case, so Dr. Graham-Williams is not relevant. Director Hoffman, Lonberg, Miller, Director Alice Taylor, Director Charlene Taylor, or Director Washington. So those could be members of the Finance Committee. Currently, it is Director Washington, if I'm not mistaken. And so moving forward, we would be looking for nominations, self-nominations for members of the Finance Committee. And just to add some detail, there are approximately 4 additional meetings of an hour per year for these committees. They're also held on Mondays, typically at 2 p.m. They are typically 30 to 45 minutes. Very straightforward agendas, and I'm not sure if any other members of the Finance Committee would like to kind of add to the description, but I don't believe it's necessarily a burdensome time commitment, and it's an extremely crucial part of what the FFE does, and really helps to guide the financial resources of the foundation. So very, very important work, and anyone's duty here or service for a year, a 1-year term, very, very much appreciated.
Anyone have any interest?
I would like to actually nominate myself. Over these last few years, I feel that I've very much so developed right along with the foundation.
Thank you, Director Calderon.
Yes, I would love to continue to possibly be able to serve on more of a challenging capacity and have a deeper understanding of the Finance Committee. So that's what I wanted to share with you.
Awesome, thank you. Director Washington, you're currently serving. Do you feel like you would like a break?
No, I would definitely be honored to continue, but I definitely want to listen for other voices. So if somebody else wanted to, I definitely would go alongside and allow them the opportunity to be in the room and see what goes on and what is said. I think that's fair, but I would definitely serve again and serve this group if you wanted me to.
I just enjoy this board so much and how gracious everyone is. Any other, because we can still have a vote. Anyone else who's interested? I don't want to overlook. We want and encourage fresh new voices. If you're fine being a member and just don't feel like you're ready to step into this level of leadership with the Foundation for Excellence, please don't think anyone judges that, because I certainly understand. Hearing none, it looks like we have two nominations, Directors Calderon and Washington.
Okay.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
with that, to the executive committee, we, starting kind of in reverse order here, is that a member of the finance committee, other than the treasurer, would be part of the executive committee. So going down the list, and of course, those who aren't redundant, that would be Director Calderon-Hueso or Director Washington would then also be a part of the executive committee. And again, those are about 4 to 5 meetings per year, and those are held back to back on the Monday with the finance committee at 3 p.m. So usually there's a little gap between, but again, about the same time commitment and different agenda, different responsibilities, but equally as important, right? It's really the administration that's helping to guide the board's agendas each meeting, and sort of policy and top level decisions. So crucial work. And if Director Calderon-Hueso or Washington would like to step into that role as well, I'm sure it would be deeply appreciated.
Sandra, is this the challenge you're looking for?
Okay, so then I'm sorry, because I think I had confused myself. I was under the impression that you were already on. So that is actually then vacant.
Well, we're looking to fill available slots. So none of us in all technically is what I'm struggling to say, that aside from those whose roles are assigned, no one is automatically on from year to year. We have to fill and post and vote annually. So it's between the two of you because the last remaining slot is for a representative from the Finance Committee. So what do you all think?
Yeah, would you like to do that, Sandra?
I'm down for the challenge.
I thought
or
so.
Up for the challenge.
I thought so. All right.
Awesome. Thank you.
You can be down or up. So, you know.
That's true.
Outstanding. And then, Madam President, the number 5 blank there that we see under the executive committee is for a city director. And city directors are defined as being the mayor, who's a member ex officio, the 2 city commissioners, who in this case are Commissioners Hess and Commissioner Urban, and the at-large director. Since the at-large director has stepped down effective, or rather he's not renewing his term, we should say, with this term, and we haven't filled it, and we'll do that next term, the only eligible people would be Director Anderson, Hess, or Urban. And I received an email from Director Hess expressing interest in taking on this role. So unless anything has changed there, or Madam President, unless you yourself have received an email with any other offers to step in from, I suppose, Director Anderson or Urban.
I have not.
I believe we have a self-nomination of Commissioner Hess.
This is Commissioner Hess. It was a self-nomination deferring to Mayor Anderson if indeed he wanted to serve in that capacity. But no, I'm happy to serve.
Thank you so much, Director. Thank you, Mayor. I see him pointing, saying, you got it.
Okay, and with that, Madam President, we have then 2 full slates, so they can be moved for approval by the board.
Do we need just to clarify, do we need to read them again before we call for, as a part of the motion? Can you just read the executive committee members who's on the slate as well as the finance committee members, just so for clarification, so we can understand. This is Dr. Graham-Williams speaking, just so we have clarity in our motion.
Certainly. This is Steve Brown. President Graham-Williams, Vice President Ritzma, Treasurer Carroll, Secretary Miller, City Director Hess, and Director Calderon-Hueso. And for Finance Committee, President Graham-Williams, Treasurer Carroll, CFO Vicenzi, Vice President Ritzma, Stakeholder Director Calderon Hueso, and Stakeholder Director Washington.
Thank you. So I'm looking for a motion to approve the aforementioned individuals on the committees as stated for the next year of FFE service.
This is Von Washington, so moved.
By Director Washington.
Seconded by Jim Ritzma.
And seconded, let's go with seconded by Director Taylor, if you don't mind, Director Ritzma, as many of hers have been overlooked. We'll have you in the minutes as seconding this motion. Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor, answer with aye.
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 Any opposed with nay? Hearing none, the motion carries. Thank you so much for your agreeing to serve, and congratulations, committee members.
Madam President, with that, we leave the regular agenda and we have 3 items left. Item E is public comments. So the IT department is on the line. Have we received any public comments that we would play?
There are no public comments at this time.
Thank you. Then we're on to item F, Madam President, would be board member comments. And following that, we would have adjournment.
Steve, any board member comments? Yes, Director Anderson, Mayor Anderson.
Yeah, David Anderson here. I just want to say I am very thankful for everyone who serves on this very, very important committee. And I personally will try to do a better job than I have been at being an ambassador and be more robust about that. So thank you for the input and the help.
Thank you. Any other board member comments? Yes, Director Hess.
Hey, Jean Hess here. Yes, I too, like the mayor, am looking forward to discerning my story and sharing it with Eleanor and Lindsay as they contact us in the next few weeks. So I'm looking forward to that. And then really getting out and being very, very public about it as we move forward in the city. As for one, I just want to continue to keep at the top of our agendas that the FFE continues to create equity in our city.
So much.
I'd like to uplift that comment. Also thank all of the directors today who made a point to stay true to our promise to the community to be transparent. And I too am really looking forward to the conversation, to being a better ambassador, and as always, to find better ways to have the community be informed on the Foundation for Excellence, what it's doing, what the plans are for the future, and how more of our community members can actually become more involved and educated around the foundation.
Director Calderon Hueso. Yes, Director Carroll.
Director Carroll speaking, and I just wanted to thank Director Calderon Hueso for agreeing to be on the committees, the executive committee and the finance committee. I look very much forward to working with you on that.
Director Mayor Anderson, forgive me. Steve, do you mind stopping the share so we can see each other?
Yes, Madam President.
Thank you. Go ahead, Director Anderson.
I was just going to mention that. Take the share away so we can all see each other for the last shot here. Yes, thank you.
Great minds, Mayor, great minds. Any others? I just want to thank you all again for your confidence in me. I lead at the privilege of this group. I thank you for creating a safe space where we can talk about the things that grieve us and feeling comfortable to do that, and a place free of judgment, and just the support that I feel on this board. I serve on quite a few boards, as I'm sure most of us do in the workplace, but this is truly a special place, and it is really certainly a blessing to my life. And I'm looking forward to all we will do together, and I'm thankful for all we've done in the past, and this is just the beginning. Thank you all for all you do.
I mean, this is what we would do.
All right, hearing none, I'm looking for a motion for adjournment.
You know, you tell
So
me.
moved.
Thank you, Director Washington.
I can't guarantee.
Second that.
Thank you, Director Hess. Have a wonderful day. Enjoy the sun and stay safe and healthy, everybody. Mask up.
Thank you. Bye,
Bye.
everybody.
Take care.
Bye.
Thanks for everything.